Hello there everybody and welcome back to Movie Squirm. Now this week I turned 35 years old and I was born on the 30th of July 1988, and I do share my birthday with some awesome people there like Arnold Schwarzenegger, Lawrence Fishburne, Christopher Nolan. So it's a good birthday to have, I feel. But I thought I'd come on the channel here today and do my personal favourite movie from the year I was born, 1988, and then all the way up to 2023, so 1989, 1990, 1991, and so forth. We're going to be talking about 35 movies here. Now, just a little bit of criteria for the video before I get into it. I am going to be using sometimes a movie from the same franchise. I know a lot of people like to do lists with one movie from each franchise, but I'm not going to be doing that. There are some sequels that I am attached to and I have a lot of love for, as well as the original. So you might see the same franchise pop up more than once here. Also, some of these movies you may not interpret to horror, but there might be some horror comedies thrown in, some family-friendly horror movies, if you get my drift. So bear that in mind. So I also just want to say that these are personal favourites. They are not the overall best horror movie of that year, although some of them may be. Some of them you might be thinking, why has he put that there over this movie? It's probably just because I've got a more personal attachment to it. I've rewatched it so many times, or I just have a lot of love for it from growing up, from, just something. It might be a guilty pleasure movie, whatever, you get the gist. But the personal favourites, not overall best of the year. So let's just get into it now with 1988, the year I was born. First up, we're going to have Child's Play, directed by Tom Holland. Now, this was the start of my second favourite horror franchise ever, alongside Nightmare on Elm Street there in the Child's Play series. Chucky was born. And this follows a film about this young mother who's struggling, and her son really wants this good guy doll for his birthday, but she can't really afford it. And she finds this knockoff one, really, that's been getting sold by like this poor guy in the streets. She buys it, and this does in fact have the soul of Charles Lee Ray inside, and it's a real good tension building movie for the first act. We don't quite know if Chucky is all inside Andy's head or if it's Andy committing the murders and stuff, until that moment where Catherine Hicks's character just pulls the back of the doll off and there are no batteries inside, and Chucky's been talking all along, and that is where Chucky was born. I absolutely adore this original movie. I think it's just really well paced. And we do have some great one-liners from Chucky in here. It's a cool little voodoo type movie, which plays on, that subplot really, with Charles Lee Ray being into voodoo and stuff, and that's how he got his soul inside the doll. Some really cool kills in there and stuff, and I just think this is a really good original slasher, and it's one of the best in the franchise for me. So 1988 is a movie close to my heart because it started one of my favourite franchises, and that is Child's Play. Now, next up, I'm going to pick a movie over another movie here that was very close, and there may be some runners-up in this video as I go along. I was very close to picking Pet Sematary here because I think that's an excellent horror movie, but the movie I've picked is more horror comedy, and it's more like family-friendly, if you like, even though it does have some really creepy moments in there. And I've gone with The Burbs because this is one of my most watched movies of all time, so I thought I'd throw it in there. Tom Hanks when he done comedy, really, and this is about these neighbours who move in called the Klopeks into this street where everyone knows each other, and they just keep themselves to themselves, really. They don't really want to interact with the neighbours or anything, and Tom Hanks and his friends seem to think something is going on over there, and they actually might be murdering people because one of the neighbours has gone missing and no one's heard from him. They think the Klopeks might have murdered them and kind of buried them in the backyard there, and it's up to Tom Hanks and his friends to investigate what is going on. It's a really fun film from a fun director, Joe Dante, who made Gremlins, of course, and lots of other wacky movies. But there is a bit of horror in there, I suppose. The Klopeks are very, very strange. There's some moments where Tom Hanks is having horrific nightmares and the Klopeks are just playing on his brain all the time. I just find this to be a really fun movie, but, the horror elements do really work well with the comedy. It's a really fine balance there, and one of them films that I have just rewatched constantly over the years. So for 1989, I have to go with The Burbs. For 1990, I'm going to be going back to the Child's Play franchise here, and I've gone with Child's Play 2. This is probably my most watched Chucky movie. It's one of the very first horror movies I ever seen, So I had to include this sequel in the list as well as the original. This is where they seem to have Chucky at his absolute best here. They knew they had a great horror villain, and they ran with it in this movie. Chucky is just killing people left, right, and centre. I think the first kill of the movie is 5 minutes in, and it does not stop from there. We see Andy Barclay, who's taken over by these foster parents, and Chucky follows him to try and capture his soul and take over his body, really. It's got a cool introduction to the franchise's best character, in my opinion, in Kyle, who is Andy Barclay's adopted sister, or stepsister, whatever you want to call it there. And she is a really cool character. It really helps elevate this sequel. Characters you care about with her and Andy, and you want them to just kick Chucky's ass. But Chucky is coming out with some one-liners here that are just awesome.
How's it hanging, Phil?
He's got some really creative kills in here. I really like when he takes Beth Grant's character, who plays the most annoying character in every movie she's in, and he just beats her to death with that ruler there, and it says, "You've been very naughty, Miss Cattlewell." I just think that's a great one-liner, and it's got an awesome third act in the toy factory. I just think this film absolutely flies by. It's under 90 minutes, but it's just fun slasher. One of my favourite slashers of all time. So I have to put Child's Play 2 there for 1990. Now here's where you might sort of know what I mean by the criteria. 1991 seeing one of the best horror movies ever made, thriller movies, whatever you want to call it. I do think it's a horror film because there's people's faces being bitten off here and people are being hit, and that is Silence of the Lambs. But I have not gone with that movie. As good as it is, and it's probably better than my personal favourite I'm about to pick, I just want to give that a mention there because that is an awesome film. That is one of the best movies ever made, let's be honest. But for 1991, I've gone with The People Under the Stairs. This is a film I've rewatched so many times, and I just think it's an absolute gem from Wes Craven there. We see a home invasion film turn on its head there because it's this group of characters who think they're getting ripped off by their landlord. So they decide to break into his house and, you know, take a bit back there because he's just stealing off so many poor people in the neighborhood. And what these characters don't realize is this landlord is an absolute cannibalistic maniac who's got people living in the walls, people living up under the stairs who he's captured. And he's just got this wife who's just they're just this real freaky family. And Fool, the young boy in this movie, has to find his way out of this house that has just become on lockdown once they figure out that people are trying to invade their home, really. Just so wacky. It does follow the horror comedy subgenre a little bit there, but there are some real intense moments in this movie. I absolutely hate the Rottweiler dog in this film. It just is a pain in the ass. It always turns up at every corner, but some great performances here from the family members who are just these cannibals and stuff. I just think it's a really interesting movie. I know Jordan Peele is looking to produce a remake for this, and he might be the perfect person to do that. But for now, this is one of my personal favourite Wes Craven movies, and one that I just have a lot of fun with. And there's a moment where this girl gets thrown into a boiling bath, and I feel that every time that happens, man. Fucking hell, it just makes my skin crawl. So that is People Under the Stairs. For 1992, I've gone with Candyman. Bernard Rose just absolutely put together a brilliant, pure horror movie here. Like, I just think the story is so creepy, so intense, and the urban legend style it goes with just totally works. This sees Virginia Madsen and her friend investigate the legend of Candyman, who is this figure who appears behind you in the mirror if you say his name 5 times in the mirror there. And Virginia Madsen and her friend soon put that to the test, and then Virginia Madsen's life, Helen, her name is in this movie, just spirals out of control into hell, basically. Everything just starts going wrong for her, and blood, violence, and murder follow her every turn. And we've got Tony Todd in there as the hypnotic Candyman, who's just got this awesome voice. He put in a great performance here to make a great slasher movie villain.
Be my victim.
But even though this is probably a slasher film, I just think it's got a little bit more to it than that. It's a little bit more clever. And overall, just a movie that really does grip you. Like I said, it's a pure horror movie, this one. This is horror at its absolute best. If I'd done a top 10 horror movies, this would be in it. Candyman is fucking awesome. I absolutely love it. So I had to put that in there for 1992. Okay, this was a bit of a hard year, this one, 1993, and this is probably the most family-friendly movie on this list, but I've gone with Hocus Pocus. I know it's a Disney movie. I know it's, you know, a PG film for the family, and it follows these child characters who are just, it's kind of a fun movie. But it's still about witches who come on Halloween and try and murder kids, so I suppose you could say it's a horror movie at times as well. And this is just a really, you know, entertaining film. This follows the Sanderson sisters, who put a curse on this town, basically, and in 300 years later, I think it is, after they've been hung by the village folk, once this guy lights a candle in the old Sanderson sisters' house, they're going to come back. And, you know, they're not dead forever, basically, and they do come back into modern times, and what ensues is just absolute hilarity. These Sanderson sisters are great. You know, Bette Midler, I believe, is one of them. I really forgot the other actresses' names. I'm really sorry. But they all play great parts in this, and they are just so fun to be around. And the main characters that we have here, Max and his sister, and Allison, they are great characters to follow around as well and try and beat the Sanderson sisters. No one believes them. They think it's all a big Halloween gig, that these sisters are all dressed up as the witches because they're quite famous in the town. And it really does capture Halloween, the Halloween holiday, at heart there. It's a great one to watch in October. But I absolutely love Hocus Pocus. Shame about the sequel, which wasn't even half as good. This one is one I can rewatch anytime. So for 1993, I had to put Hocus Pocus in there. For 1994, I've gone with Wes Craven's New Nightmare. This is probably my second favourite Elm Street movie after the third one. I know the original is great, but I just think this one is a really clever story. Kind of feels like Wes Craven's first attempt at what he was trying to do with Scream, although he didn't quite nail it down there. But it's a movie within a movie, really. Freddy, who is coming into the real world to terrorise Heather Langenkamp and her son. And Heather Langenkamp doesn't quite know what's going on. The movies she starred in are becoming a reality, and that is quite a frightening concept. I just think it really, you know, Wes Craven done really well with the pacing of this film. We don't quite see Freddy until about an hour in there. It's kind of like what Spielberg did with Jaws. And when we see him, you're like, oh, holy shit. It takes its time, but I like that about it. It takes its time to tell a well put together story, if you like. And, you know, I like the way it throws out from a few tropes from the original in there, with the babysitter getting pulled across the ceiling and stuff like that. And it just makes for an awesome third act as well. So for 1994, I've gone with Wes Craven's New Nightmare. 1995 was a real toss-up here, because I don't quite know if you can interpret both of these films as horror films. And I had to go with either Species or Seven. Species is kind of like a slasher movie involving an alien, really, where she wants to take over these men to impregnate them. And Seven is more of a crime thriller, I suppose. So people watching could either say these are horror or they're not. Now, Species is one that was a personal favourite of mine, and if that leaned towards horror more, I would probably have went with that. But for the sake of this video, I'm just going to go with Seven. I know it's probably more of a thriller movie, but there is still a lot of horrifying elements in here. We follow these two cops who are at the opposite ends of the spectrum, and Brad Pitt and Morgan Freeman. One is about to retire, the other one wants to get to where he was, and have to work together to take down this killer who is committing the 7 deadly sins, you know, like gluttony, greed, and he's putting these people in all these positions to showcase that sin, basically. And it all is very well paced. It tells a great crime detective story. And what ensues in the third act, if you haven't seen the film, is something that will absolutely fry your brain. You know, it's a very, very clever movie from David Fincher. And I just love the whole cinematography of the film. Like, you feel like something is really bad is happening in this city with all the rain constantly coming down. It's a dark and gloomy film. And there's some depressing moments in there. But to be honest, it's one of the best films ever made. And the more I watch it, the more I appreciate how well to put together it is. So, horror or not, I've still gone with Seven. So, that's my answer for 1995. For 1996, it was another toss-up. I've watched both of these movies so many times. And the runner-up for this year is The Craft, which is a brilliant film about these teenagers in high school who are witches. I highly suggest you watch that film if you like your 90s horror. But I gotta go with Scream, man. This is one of the best slasher movies ever made. And yes, this is a film I've watched a hell of a lot of times as well. Wes Craven finally nailed it down what he was trying to do here with New Nightmare, I think, in giving the rules of horror films. Characters who don't follow the rules end up dying in the movie and stuff. And it basically makes fun of the slasher genre while being a brilliant slasher itself. Ghostface was introduced to us here as an awesome villain, and it's a brilliant whodunit movie. I don't think a lot of people seen that ending coming in a million years, because it's usually just the one killer, but the two killers just work so well. You know, you got great characters in there. Courtney Cox as Gail Weathers. You know, got Dewey in there. Final girl, who is a favourite amongst horror fans, and Neve Campbell, Sidney Prescott. And Stu Maker, of course, the greatest character in all of the Scream movies. Just so fun to be around in this film. And the killers in this movie, I'm not going to name them if you haven't seen the film, but on rewatch, you appreciate what Wes Craven really done there, because they're acting like absolute psychopaths in the film, but you don't really catch on to it the first time. It's only when you rewatch it you notice that. And I just think this movie really unravels itself so well. This is also one of the most popular horror franchises right now. It's spawned so many sequels, but Scream is where it all started off, and I just think this is a fantastic slasher film. For 1996, I've gone with Scream. For 1997, I've gone with Scream 2, can you believe it? Like I said, this spun a massive franchise there, and it is one of the strongest franchises in horror. You know, along with The Evil Dead, I think this might be the strongest. There's not really a bad movie in there, and Scream 2 is such an awesome sequel. I like how it does with the first movie, where it plays with horror movie rules, but here we're playing with sequel rules. You know, you got Randy in there explaining everything, sort of, not in the third wall, but sort of still talking to the audience through other characters there. And we're all in a college campus on this one, with Sidney Prescott trying to forget what happened and move on with their life. And the killer obviously does follow her to here, and we have to guess who done it again. I just think this is a really fun slasher movie, some creative kills in there, really. Randy's death is awesome. I love how you kind of want him to find this killer in the park, and it's in the van all along. You just don't expect it at all. Great great unveiling of the characters and stuff. I just think this is a really solid sequel. It's not my favourite Scream sequel, but it's one of the better ones. That is Scream 2. Coming up for 1998, we have Blair. Now, when I was a teenager, this was actually my personal favourite movie of all time. I used to watch this on VHS every single week, more than once a week sometimes. I just love Wesley Snipes in the role here of Blair. I think he's fucking awesome as this vampire hunter, and he is just kicking ass left, right and centre here. One of the best openings to a horror movie ever. I think I put this third in my top 10 horror movie openings. If you want to see that video, I'll leave it in the link down below, where he goes to this nightclub and just starts taking zombies out, and then you quickly realise what is going on. And this story building in this movie plays out, how all these vampires are living in the city amongst themselves in the darkness, and how these people, the humans, just have no clue. And Wesley Snipes is somewhere in the middle there, where he's like this half vampire, half human, but he is totally against the vampires, and he's out there just trying to put a stop to them all with his friend Whistler. I just think this movie is awesome. It's a great action horror movie with great characters. You know, Stephen Dorff really puts a great performance in it as Deacon Frost in there, and we've just got some really cool moments. I especially love the end where this guy robs Blade's sunglasses, and later on he just puts a sword over his, I think he puts a sword through and he evaporates or something, and he catches the sunglasses and just puts them back on. I just think that's brilliant. This movie is so much fun. One of the best vampire movies ever made. So for 1998, I've gone with Blair.
Some motherfuckers are always trying to ice skate uphill.
1999, I have gone with The Blair Witch Project. One of the first, if not the first, found footage movie I ever seen. There was so much talk going into this film. We didn't really have the internet back then, but there was rumblings around the community about this film that was coming out, and it was going to be real, and you know, the filmmakers really died and stuff, and I was very interested in seeing this film, hearing my friends talk about it. And when I finally watched it, I could not believe what I was seeing. I actually did think it was real, and I was freaked out all night. I will never forget that night. I was having hot sweats in bed. I kept seeing the Blair Witch sign on my wall, even though it wasn't there, but I just thought it was in the shadows. I could not sleep all night. This movie terrified the life out of me. And it is so well done, so well put together, that I rewatched it with my wife who'd never seen it just a few years ago, and even she was freaked out. So it still is working to this day on some people, about these characters who go lost in the woods looking for this Blair Witch project, and they get lost. And looking for this witch, should I say, and they just get lost, and they're waking up from their tent, and there's just like these piles of stones built there, but you think they're alone in the forest. Things like that. You don't really get to see what is going on. It's all just in your mind, really. It's what you don't see. And for me, this movie was just one of the scariest things I've ever seen, and a brilliant, brilliant horror film. It's 1999, I've gone with the Blair Witch Project. Another movie that terrified me for the year 2000, I'm going to go with Final Destination. When I say that, this is a different type of scare where it makes me worried every time I get on an airplane because of that opening scene. That opening scene, man, is just freaky as hell. It's about these teenagers who are going on a trip to France, and they have to take this plane, and this guy who, he has a vision of the plane crashing, and he's on it, and all his friends are just, you know, they're all in the crash, and he sees them all dying in front of him. And then he actually wakes up on the plane before it takes off, and he says, I'm getting off this motherfucker. He gets off the plane takes off and crashes. And there's about 6 people who follow him off the plane, and they have sort of cheated death there. So death comes after them in all different ways. I just think this is a really cool idea for a movie. You know, it hadn't really been done like this before. It's a slasher movie with an invisible villain, if you like, because death can come after us in so many different ways. Like, there's a guy who was strangled in the shower, and it's made to look like an accident, but it wasn't. Things like that. And I just had a lot of fun with this movie, but that opening act, man, it stuck with me forever. And it's just a movie, I know, but wow, that is a very psychological horror movie for me, but one that I think is very well done despite that brilliant opening sequence. For the years 2000, I've gone with Final Destination. 2001, I've gone with Frailty, a movie that doesn't get enough praise in my opinion, but every time I hear people watch it, whether it's my recommendation or not, they seem to enjoy this film. I think it's got a really cool concept with, we've got Bill Paxton and his family living on this little farmhouse there. Bill Paxton is a man of religion. He's a man of faith. And he goes to work one day, and he comes home, and he's like, he can't believe what he's seeing. He tells his 2 sons that he has been visited by this angel, and he's got to go out and kill these demons who live amongst us on the earth, but they're disguised as human beings, so you can't really tell if they're a demon or not. And he's set out to go and he's got this little list of these people who are meant to be demons, and he says to his sons, you've got to work with me here, we've got to go out and kill them. And one of his sons believes him and is totally up for it, and the other son thinks he's an absolute whack job, thinks he's a psychopath, and he doesn't want anything to do with it. And that's where there's a bit of a confliction in the family, and my God, what I choose is nothing short of brilliance. The ending to this movie is one that had my jaw on the floor. There are so many twists and turns along the way, and it's just a really well played out story. I absolutely love Frailty. I think it's one of the most clever horror movies ever made, and Bill Paxton actually directed this as well. So definitely worth a watch if you haven't seen it. One of the most underrated horror movies I've ever seen. So that is Frailty. 2002 was another tough year again. And again, this may not be interpreted to a horror movie, whatever way you look at it. I can see people saying this is more of a sci-fi drama. It's just a bit of fun, isn't it? I've gone with M. Night Shyamalan's Signs. What I love about this movie and what Shyamalan does with his films is something can be happening, something massive, but he puts it on the screen as very small scale. So what I mean by that is this film, seeing the world taken over by these aliens or these UFOs landing left, right and centre, but we don't see any of that in the city. The whole movie takes place on this farmhouse with Mel Gibson and his brother Joaquin Phoenix and their family. And it's all told from within now. The only things we see from the outside are on the TV and stuff. I just think that gives the movie so much atmosphere, so much wonder, so much curiosity as a viewer as what's going on here. And not everything is given away because we kind of got to work it out for ourselves and amongst these characters who are just basically taking all the information off their TV and the crop circles that are appearing outside the farmhouse. This has one of the best jump scares I have ever seen in a movie. The first time I seen it, man, I come off my seat where we're watching the news and this little green alien walks past. Sounds very silly, but when you watch it, you're like, holy shit. I think this is one of Shyamalan's best movies. The more I watch it, the more I appreciate it. So I got to go with Signs for this year. 2003, I'm going to go with Rob Zombie's House of 1,000 Corpses. Now, I remember my dad brought this home on DVD, and it had all the characters' heads on the front. They all looked very silly. I thought, I'm not watching that. That looks stupid. That looks like a low-budget trash horror movie. That is just going to be terrible. I know it is. And then about a year later, for some reason, I just picked it up. I think my dad might have said it's actually quite good. And I was actually really surprised by how good this was. Another great opening scene, like Blade, Final Destination, Scream, one of my favourite horror movie openings here. And this sees a bunch of characters who, they get a flat tyre when they're just going through the outback. I can't remember if it's in Texas or something. It looks like the deep south of America somewhere. Kind of has the Texas Chainsaw Massacre feels. But the people have been going missing in this state. And they come across this family who say, yeah, we can fix the tyre for you, but it's going to be a while. Come into the house and, you know, get yourself settled and sit down, have some dinner with us and stuff like that. And this family are a group of maniacs, basically. What ensues is nothing short of horrific stuff. And we see our characters just basically have to fight for their lives to get out. Sounds very, very simple, but I do think there's a little bit more to this. Having this entire wacky family, it does take a lot of inspiration from Texas Chainsaw Massacre, I suppose, but we got a great character in there of Captain Spaulding, who has a part to play in the third act, and you kind of wonder where he's gone after the first act of the movie there.
1, fuck your mama. 2, fuck your sister.
And it's a bit of a homage to horror films. You can feel like Rob Zombie's in there, you know, paying respect to the horror genre as best as he can while doing his own thing. He kind of done something that, even though it felt familiar, sort of invented something else there, I suppose. Rob Zombie gets a lot of hate, and understandably so. Not all his movies are great, but I'm a really big fan of this. I think this is a great directional debut. I believe it was his debut. I know he'd done a lot of music videos, but this is one to check out, and it did spawn a franchise. There's another 2 sequels after this. I still need to check out 3 from Hell, but I think this is a really cool movie. So that is A House of 1,000 Corpses. 2004, we do have Saw, James Wan and Lee Winnell, seeing the idea become a reality here of these 2 guys who are just wake up in this bathroom, this dark, horrible, disgusting bathroom, and they are chained to the wall, and they've got to find a way out. But slowly as the movie moves on, they find out why they're there. Everything is unraveling, the story is unfolding, and we do have a few flashbacks here and there of why these characters are there. And we do find out that it's down to this guy who punishes people for not for living their lives. Basically, they take life for granted, so he decides to teach them a lesson and play a game with these people. And if you get free, you get to live your life. If not, you die. So basically, we just have people caught in all types of traps here and stuff, but the main focus of the movie is the 2 guys in the bathroom. And I just think this is a really haunting film. It's just so well paced, and it has the ending of a lifetime. I mean, this is one of the most shocked I've ever been at a movie. At the end of this film, in the 3rd act, where it happens, if you've seen it, you know what I'm talking about. I was just like the character Adam in the movie.
Hello, Mark. Hello, Dr. Gordon. I want to play a game.
So, one of the best horror movies ever made, in my opinion. This would be in my top 10, alongside some I've mentioned here, like Candyman and stuff. I just think it's a brilliant, brilliant movie. 2005 sees the torture porn genre lift off, if you like. I think Saw may have started it there, and Eli Roth may have seen an opportunity, although he might have been writing this before Saw it even come out. But I think this is a movie that gets actually better on rewatch. I didn't really love it at first, but the more I watch it, the more I think, yeah, this is actually quite a creepy film, and it feels real. I think that's the scariest thing about horror movies. If it feels real, or it could be real, or it's a realistic take on something, that's the most scariest thing for me. The Texas Chainsaw Massacre from 1974, wouldn't put it past any family of cannibals living in the outback of Texas. I wouldn't. That could really be happening right now. And Hostel, it does sort of feel like if these people with lots of money can do what they want. And this basically follows this group of friends who are just backpacking across Europe there. And they get caught up in this sort of bidding war amongst these millionaires, and people can actually buy your life. So they sort of, this hunting club kidnaps people, and people might buy them. You know, it's like a human trafficking deal. So people might actually buy these people who have been kidnapped and do whatever they want to them. They can torture them, kill them with one bullet to the head, chop their fingers off, whatever they want to do. And it just is put together by Eli Roth like it feels like this could happen in the real world. Some really torturous moments in here, lots of blood and gore. There's a chick who gets her eye cut out and stuff by a burner. I mean, there's some really heavy stuff in here, but for me, I think this is a really clever film. And yeah, it spawned a great sequel in Hostel 2 as well. I would like to see more Hostel movies, I would, but I'm going to pick Hostel for 2006. I think it's awesome. Okay, I said 2006 Hostel, I meant 2005. But for 2006, we do have the Hills of Eyes remake. Now, I went into this movie with zero expectations. I just thought, oh, Texas Chainsaw Massacre done well as a remake. I'll be doing the Hills of Eyes now, I'll be cash grab central. But actually, I actually prefer this over the original. I think this is such a well put together remake. Group of people break down in the middle of nowhere, and these inbreds, sort of, from the hills come down and basically make their life a living hell. There's a few rape scenes in there that are very hard hitting. I didn't expect to see that at all, but there's some great makeup design, some great gore effects. Really, really well paced film, and it's just a movie that basically just goes for the jugular. I had a great time with this. I did not expect this remake to be good, and it is one of my favorite remakes ever. I mean, it's in my top 10, so I watched this one a few times now. I think it's pretty awesome, and you should definitely check it out. So that is The Hills of Eyes. 2007, we do have The Mist, directed by Frank Darabont, believe it or not, who made The Shawshank Redemption, he made The Green Mile, and he done another Stephen King movie here in The Mist. Really cool concept about these characters stuck in this supermarket, this mini mart, if you like. And if they go outside into this fog, they will be killed by the monsters that live out there. Now, what I like about this is you kind of really kept, you know, in the dark, excuse the pun really, but these monsters are in the fog. You don't really see what they're all about. You just see people being, you know, taken away by them, if you like. And I like the way that was all done. And the characters have got to try and work a way out, work amongst themselves to get a way out of this store. And you know, I just like the way humans try to interact with each other and how they countered each other in this movie to try and find a way. There are some annoying characters in here, especially the religious woman. She kind of brings the movie down for me. But overall, this is a really well played out film, and it's got the ending, the most shocking ending, maybe, of any horror movie I've ever seen. Definitely the most depressing ending to a horror movie I think I've seen. Thomas Jane is great as the main protagonist here, but this is definitely one you should check out, and one of the best Stephen King adaptations out there. That is The Mist. Talking about brutal, depressing and shocking endings, for 2008, I'm going to go with Eden Lake. This is a really cool British horror movie that was all made at the time of these hoodies that we call them here in the UK, where youths were dominating the headlines and the newspapers and stuff, and they were like the scum of the country, if you like. Looking back now, with the government easily just putting that blame to them, who knows? But I like the way the movie was made in that time, because it sort of does connect for me at a time where I was growing up, and I kind of seen a rise in crime in the UK and stuff like that. And this basically follows this couple who just want to get away for the weekend, and they go to this little country where the guy has found this little beauty spot where he wants to sit with his wife. I think he's going to ask her to get married to him there and stuff like that, but they're just this really happy couple. You know, they're enjoying life together, and they go to this little spot and just chill there, and this gang of hoodlums are hanging around there as well, and it isn't long before they are terrorized by these teenagers, and things start to spiral out of control, or should I say way out of control. Some things here just happen that should never happen, and oversteps the mark with what these teenagers do. And it all starts out as a bit of a joke at first, but it just goes way too far. I think this film is excellent. It's got some real good gore in there, some brutal moments, and like I said, a heavy-hitting ending. That is Eden Lake. 2009 is going to be another Rob Zombie movie, and that is Halloween 2. Yes, some of you may turn the video off now, I get it, but for me, I can't lie, this is one of my favourite Halloween movies. I just love how Rob Zombie done his own thing with this. Now, let me explain why it's in here. Last year, I watched the entire Halloween franchise, from the original to the latest one, Halloween Ends. And there are a lot of films in that franchise that do the same thing. They just rinse and repeat. You got Halloween, Halloween 2, which I do like, by the way. And then you got Halloween 4, Halloween 5, the Halloween H2O, the 2018 remake. There are a lot of films that just do the same thing, and I was really appreciating it when we got something different. I am a fan of Halloween Ends because it gave me something different, and Halloween 2 from Rob Zombie, he just said, fuck it, I'm doing my version. A lot of people don't like some of the stuff in here, like Laurie Strode, because she's an arsehole. I absolutely love her in this movie because I like how she's not the perfect person. I like how Dr. Loomis is cashing in on him being Michael Myers' sort of therapist. I like how he's an arsehole as well. I like how brutal Michael Myers in here. He might be the most brutal Michael Myers I've seen. The opening 25 minutes is one of the greatest things I've ever seen in horror. So well put together. Just the cinematography is on point. The lighting, everything he'd done in that first 25 minutes is perfect to me. Perfection. And the rest of the movie is quite good as well. There's people's heads just being caved in left, right, and centre. The ending as well, I was just like, holy shit, Rob Zombie just does not care here, man. And can we just get a Rob Zombie Halloween 3 for you, please? Yes, I know that's an unpopular opinion, but I really enjoyed Halloween 2. I think if you watch it again, you may be surprised. For me, this is an awesome movie, and it's in my top 3 Halloween films. 2009, I've gone with Halloween 2. 2010 was another toss-up, really. I recently watched a film called I Saw the Devil, but I have only seen it once, but I was kind of blown away by the film. I thought it was excellent, about a cat and mouse turned on its head a little bit there. But I have gone with Insidious. Now, I must admit, the more I watch this movie, it does lose less appeal to me. I think the second act is nowhere near as good as the first, but the first time I watched it, I was kind of blown away. However, this is really quite a scary film. It's one of them few films that actually scared me. And this sees this family move to this house, and it sort of feels like it's haunted a little bit there. So they move out, and they think it's all going to go away, and they actually find out that it's their child that's haunted, and he can go into this place called the Further while he's in this coma where the demons sort of live, and it's up to his father to go and get him back out of there. Really interesting concept from James Wan. I think he'd done something really cool and original here. Like I said, it's just the second half of the movie that has lost it for me over the years a little bit. But it's still a very, very good film, and one that I've seen countless times. So for 2010, I've gone with Insidious, and it did spawn a lot of sequels as well, so it shows you how successful it is. 2011, I've gone with my favourite sequel out of the Scream movies, Scream 4. I know that's an unpopular opinion, but for me, I just had a lot of fun with this movie. Yes, the opening scene is a little bit too much, but everything after that, I just think it's a really fun time. It's a movie where I didn't guess the killer at all, and sometimes I do with these films, and it's got one of the best killers in there. But this is just this really brought it all back for me after Scream 3, which wasn't a bad movie. It was just a little bit too comedic and stuff. Scream 4 felt like it was that brutal Scream movie. Got some really good, cool Ghostface moments in here. Some really awesome slasher scenes. I like how it's sort of all coming back for Sydney where it originally started. And I just think it's a fun movie. I mean, there's not too much to say. It's just a well-paced slasher, really, with a great whodunit aspect. And the third act, where you think it's all over, it goes a little bit further there and becomes even more of a, sadistic last 15 minutes, if you like, involving the main killer of this film. So, yeah, I thought this was awesome. Sidney Prescott's niece in there, who she's got to sort of look after and stuff. All the legendary cast are back, Gale Weathers and stuff like that. It's just a fun Scream movie, and one that fits nicely in the franchise. That is Scream 4.
But if you want to be in the hospital, I'd be happy to put you there. In the fucking morgue.
2012 is going to be a film that generally did scare me a hell of a lot. It was probably one of the last movies to ever scare me, although there is one more coming up in 2015 that I want to talk about. But for this, I've gone with Sinister. Now, there's just something about this guy who moves into this house and finds all these videotapes in the attic, that of these families who've lived there in the years gone by being murdered on these videotapes, and this guy has been watching them leading up to the murder. That just sent chills up my spine, man. I mean, I was like, that's it about Ethan Hawke's character. Man, just get out the house now. Leave. Go. And I just thought that was a really, really creepy concept. The movie itself is scary throughout. It's a really well put together concept. And Scott Derrickson, I believe it was, who made this. He also made The Black Phone and stuff. This is his best movie, man. I just think this is an awesome original horror movie and one that done something different. That is Sinister. Next up, we have 2013, and that is probably my favourite remake ever. The 2013 remake of The Evil Dead. I loved what Fede Alvarez done here. He just made the ultimate Evil Dead movie, in my opinion. Now, I know the first two sort of play off the horror comedy aspects there, but Fede Alvarez just picked one and went with it, and he just went total balls to the walls horror here. I like the way our main protagonist isn't perfect. She's kind of this girl, this female character who's sort of dealing with drug addiction and going cold turkey, and she doesn't quite know whether she's coming down with this cold turkey, if it's going to be, if everything happening around it is real, or it is actually these demons taking over. And that must be a horrible concept where you're not quite yourself, and then something weird is happening in this cabin to all your friends and stuff, and you don't know if you're seeing things. I thought that played together really well. The blood on screen is awesome. It rains blood at one point in this movie. Man, what do you want from a horror film? The cinematography is awesome. I love how he captured the darkness, in this movie, and the whole feel of where they're staying in the cabin. Some great moments. There's tendons hanging off it left, right, and center here. It's just a brilliant Evil Dead film, and for me, it is probably the best in the franchise. Now, if you want to see my Evil Dead ranking, one of the first videos I've done on this channel, I'll leave it down below with my top 10 horror openings as well. For 2013, I've gone with Fede Alvarez's Evil Dead. 2014, I've gone with a really cool original concept, and that was It Follows. This basically plays upon sexually transmitted diseases and merges it with horror. So basically, this entity can come after you if you have sex with someone, and the only way to get rid of it is passing that on to someone else by having sex with them. And this entity can take all forms and shapes and sizes, and if it actually catches up to you, you are dead. It will kill you in a horrific way. And some of the forms it takes in this movie, like there's a part where this old woman and she's walking towards this character, and it's quite freaky at times. But I loved the whole story and how it played out, how this female protagonist has to sort of deal with it and get rid of it. And you're sort of pointing at the screen as if to say, well, you should do that, you should do that. And you don't know how she's going to sort of get there and find a way out of this. It just feels like it's going to stick with her forever. But It Follows was a really cool horror concept, and it is a very well made movie, very well put together. I thought it was awesome. So one of the best horror movies of the modern era, and that is It Follows. So 2015 is going to be the movie I mentioned when I was talking about Sinister that actually really creeped me out, and that is Hellhouse LLC. This is a found footage movie that sees a group of friends who are going to this tourist attraction in this town. It's this old abandoned hotel that's been done up by these characters, and they're going to let you go inside. It's going to be like a haunted house attraction. And on the first night, 15 people are killed there. We start off the movie with like this YouTube video of all these people being killed in the haunted hotel. And then the movie goes back to these characters who done the hotel up and some of the things they seen whilst doing the hotel up to be this tourist attraction. Very, very clever film. Very, very scary at times. The imagery just sticks with you. And I remember me and my wife saying to each other, how good is this, but how creepy is it while we were watching it. Hellhouse LLC is a fucking awesome, underrated horror movie that you should definitely check out. 2016 is going to be Train to Busan. This might actually be my second favourite zombie movie ever now, after Dawn of the Dead. My friend Jamie was always constantly saying, you need to watch this, you need to watch this, you need to watch this. And it definitely lives up to its name by basically how it moves as fast as the train moves, basically. So it's this group of characters who get on this train, this father and daughter, mainly, who it centres around. And these zombies, a zombie outbreak happens as they get on the train. And the zombies somehow leak onto the train and they have to get from one end of the train to the other while these zombies are in pursuit, basically. And it goes from carriage to carriage until the train actually stops. Really, really cool movie. I love how the human interaction works in this film, where characters sort of don't trust each other. They have to work together, and some may sort of sacrifice you to save themselves. The zombies are so fast here. They're terrifying. They're great to look at. Just a brilliant, brilliantly fast-paced horror zombie movie. Definitely one worth checking out, and hopefully Train to New York can be a decent remake. But Train to Busan is awesome. So that is 2016. 2017 is going to be Geralds Game, one of my favourite Stephen King adaptations. This sees a man and his wife who want to spice up their sex life a little bit there. So they go to this remote cottage, and Gerald ties up his wife. And as she's tied up, he has a heart attack and dies. And she's stuck there. She cannot get out of these sort of straps that he's put her in. She doesn't know what to do. And she's starting to fear for her life because no one can hear her. She can't reach for the phone for help. No one can hear her scream. But not only that, there are some added things that she has to think about involving this stranger who sometimes lurks around the house. And there's some supernatural horror elements that may come into play here that she's sort of got to deal with as well. And it's sort of a race against time to get out of this damn thing. Stephen King does isolation really well, I feel, and this is one of the best movies that deals with isolation from his adaptations. I know he's got The Shining and Misery and stuff. This one does it so well as well. Pretty underrated Netflix original, this one, and I highly recommend you check it out. That is Gerald's Game. 2018 is going to be Hereditary. This may very well be the best horror movie of the past 10 years. Ari Aster with his absolutely phenomenal directional debut here just made my skin crawl. This is basically about this family who sort of something is coming into play that may have happened down their family line. I can't really say too much about this movie without giving it away, but it has one of the most creepiest looking kids you've ever seen in this. There's a moment 30 minutes in where you're just like, holy shit, the movie is so well paced. It keeps you guessing throughout. There's twists and turns around every corner, and you kind of don't see it coming. Brilliant performance from Toni Collette in this movie. Like, I'll echo many people's words, she should have got an Oscar for it. And Ari Aster just builds an atmosphere here. I just felt like he really put together a solid horror film, a brilliant concept, and one that just totally works for me. I can't wait to watch this again. I've only seen it a couple of times, but I've been wanting to scratch that itch of giving this a rewatch. But overall, this is just a kind of perfect horror movie, in my opinion. That is Hereditary. 2019 is going to be Ari Aster's follow-up film, Midsummer. It's kind of hard to say which one is best. I do lean towards Hereditary, but I don't think there's too much in it. Midsummer, for me, is a Marmite movie that I absolutely loved. I was definitely on this end of loving it instead of all these people who shit on it constantly. I just absolutely thought this movie was awesome. This has kind of got these Wicker Man vibes going for it. It's a horror movie that takes place in broad daylight because we're in Sweden at the time. And, you know, it's this summer where everything is just constantly daytime. And it sees Florence Pugh tag along with her boyfriend and go to this cult that their friend has invited them to. And she feels like she may have a bit of a place there more than them. Won't want to say too much more than that, but we just see how this cult operates and some things that go on. You're kind of just like, okay, what's going to come next? What's going to happen here? It's a really well paced story that unfolds in front of your very eyes, and I appreciated every single minute of it. I don't get the hate for this movie at all. I just think he captures the atmosphere once again like Hereditary. There's a deeper meaning in the story there, and you're just, it sort of plays on the bones, if you like. There's a lot to think about, a lot to unpack after the movie, and Florence Pugh puts a great performance in. So that is Midsummer. 2020 is going to be The Invisible Man, another movie from Leigh Whannell, who just done absolutely awesome with his directing here. And that is some of the best things about the film. This sees Elizabeth Moss's character, who her husband has died, but she doesn't quite know. She sort of feels that he's still around and still terrorizing her, and that's because he has took the form of this stealth suit where he is invisible and sort of faked his own death. And I love how Leigh Whannell can make you feel like he's totally in the room without even filming anything. The camera might just go to the right and there'll be nothing there, but he's in the room, and he just makes it work so well. Really good idea for him to take this on so early in his directional career. I thought Elizabeth Moss was awesome in this film. There is a big, massive what the fuck moment in a restaurant in about the third act of the movie, and the final act plays out so well. I watched the trailer for this going in, and I thought they'd just give the whole damn movie away there. And I just thought, I'm going to see a generic horror film here. But my God, man, I was kind of blown away. And it was my second favourite movie of that year, just behind The Gentleman there. But it was my favourite horror movie of the year. I thought it was absolutely awesome. Invisible Man is a great movie. 2021, I've got A Quiet Place Part 2. This was easily one of my favourite cinema experiences ever. And that may have been down to COVID coming to an end and we were all allowed back in the cinemas. But you couldn't hear a pin drop in my showing. Everyone was very respectful. I think that played a huge part in me loving this movie, because you've got to kind of count on the audience not to speak at all here, because this sees characters who, if they do speak, they're going to be taken out by these monsters who are living amongst us. Really great opening scene where we see how it all become about, and this follows Emily Blunt and her family and how they're dealing with their journey, basically, and how stronger they're becoming as a family, how the kids are growing up and showing how they can adapt to this environment that they're in and the world that they're living in. Cillian Murphy thrown in there is a great character. So many tense moments, so many great built-up moments. I just think this is a brilliant horror movie. I think it's a really cool concept and an awesome sequel to the first one. And for me, I think this was better than the first one. It's got a very abrupt ending, but that totally works for the movie, and it just makes me think, please give me A Quiet Place Part 3 right now. So that is A Quiet Place Part 2. 2022, I have gone with X. Now, this was Ty West doing a sort of homage to the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, and I totally dug that. I loved how he caught the cinematography here, how they caught the whole feeling of the 70s. It just totally looked like the outback of Texas in the 70s, and this follows a group of filmmakers who are making corny movies, or porn movies, let's just get it right. And they use this cottage that they've rented out to sort of make these movies, and the old couple who live in the house sort of don't take kindly to that, and slaughter starts to happen, let's put it that way. There's great characters in this movie. I think that's what totally made it work. Slasher films, usually the characters are just cannon fodder. They're there to be killed, but I think each one of these characters really had something about them. Kid Cudi, with the performance out of nowhere there. Mia Goth, who's becoming this scream queen, was awesome. Jenna Ortega thrown in. It's just a really cool horror movie. Some great slasher moments, some great gore. I absolutely loved it. I did, and I loved the sequel, Pearl, as well. I can't wait for Maxine. And for 2023, I have gone with Scream 6 for now. This is a great sequel, in my opinion. The fact that it goes to New York and tries to shake it up a little bit there. We're following these new characters from Scream 5. And it's not just the legendary characters. They sort of took a back seat now. But all this core 4, as they're called in this movie, are likeable. And this sees Ghostface taking on Manhattan. Now, although it isn't fully used to its potential, there is some great moments involving the city here, like the subway scene, which is really well built up. There's moments where characters are trying to get from one apartment to the other, and Ghostface is shaking the ladder and throwing him off the ladder and stuff like that. You know, the first half of the movie, I was just like, holy shit, this is the best Scream film. There's a moment where we go to a convenience store and Ghostface is just taking motherfuckers out left, right, and centre with a shotgun. I'm glad I didn't watch the full trailer going in for this, because I was like, wow, that is an awesome scene, and the trailer would have ruined it for me. The second half of the film does go downhill a little bit. It goes a little bit silly with this big fan club in the underground and stuff. And the reveal isn't the best. I do think it sort of cheats the audience a little bit there, like Scream 3 did, which I couldn't quite get on board with. Overall, this was a really fun time. I loved Ghostface in this with the one-liners, the dialogue. He was really funny with all his black comedy. And Scream 6 was just a really fun time that I had at the cinema this year. And my favourite of the year so far, but will it be overtaken? Who knows? Find out at the end of the year when I do my top 10 list. But for 2023, I've gone with Scream 6. Okay, guys, I hope you all enjoyed that video. What are your favourite movies from each one of these years? Or just pick your 3 favourites or whatever. Let's get a discussion going in the comments. It would be fun to hear your thoughts. And what do you think of these movies? Am I wrong with these years? Am I right? You know, we've all got different opinions. Let me know down below. If this is your sort of thing and you like horror, please give this video a like and subscribe to this channel. It would really help me out. Thanks so much, and I'll see you all on the next one. Take care.